Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. Today on tap, Steve Sisler, Part 2. And I know I say that you should always go back and listen to Part 1. But if you don't, I don't know how else to say this, you're possibly missing the thing that can change your life. That's how good this interview with Steve Sisler was. The man is a genius of all genius. So make sure you go check that one out. In this part, couple of things that we touch on that are really interesting. One is how this applies to kids. So if you have kids or interact with kids, how does knowing this impact your interactions with them? We kind of touch on that topic of nature versus nurture. Steve had some very interesting insights about that. And then we spend a good part of this, and that's why this part is just so unbelievably powerful. Remember how in Part 1, we spoke about the mad, glad, sad, and scared? Well, we go into lengths about how to interact with each one. So if you're selling, or if you're in a dilemma or an argument, or you're trying to sell a company to someone, and you know what the other person is, how you actually interact with them, so those interactions are powerful. I'm going to listen to this. I've already listened to it 4 times. This is going to be something that I listen to time and time again. It's really just that good. So without further ado, here's Part 2 of my interview with Steve Sisler. Enjoy, and please email me at Ilan@SatoriPrime.com and let me know what you gathered from Part 1 and Part 2 of this interview. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that the whole thing about balance, because what I'm hearing is, the work that I've done on myself is that it's never been to squash something. I got very clear early on about the yin and yang, right? Like everything has both sides of the coin. You can't remove, like on a quarter, you can't remove the other side of the quarter. It has to have both sides. And so I think people, I agree with you, try to remove it.
Yeah.
Instead of understand it, because just as you pointed out, that whole not wanting to lose has made me probably one of the most driven people I know. What I realized though, when I was in growing up and through high school before I started doing this, I was a steamroller. I didn't give a shit who I stepped on, what it took to win. I would be the biggest asshole, and I would make people feel really bad about themselves so that I could feel better about myself.
Yeah.
And I realized what I was doing, and that it's not about that. That's just my ego wanting to do that. Then life started coming back into balance. And the funny part is now I find that it's almost leaning to the other side where it's like, you know what? If I just focus on making a difference for others, I take myself out of the equation. I don't even have to fucking worry about that whole losing thing.
I know. Pull yourself out of the equation. You're absolutely right.
Really?
And oh my God.
I want to make
Jesus successful. He pulled himself out of the equation.
I want to go back to something, because this is kind of the state that I'm in, and you brought it up about kids. So one question is, how early are these patterns and markers and behaviors set in?
Usually between birth and 8. Formative years, about up till 8, where they're structuring, their behavior is getting structured. You're born into the world with a cardinal trait. In other words, 2 years old and you're stubborn as an ox.
Yep.
Or you're choleric, or, melancholy. My daughter was very melancholy. She's melancholy today. She's 24, but she was melancholy on day 24.
Yep.
And so that came in that way. The environment you're raised in is going to polish the stone that comes out. Polishes it. And so you take your kids, if you have any, and take them in your family. You take the same DNA structure, the same person, and put it in a different family. Let's say alcoholic parents. That kid's going to be different. The environment has an effect on what we already are. And so there are, if a child has both feels and believes they have both love and security, everything else can be fixed.
Wow.
If they don't think they have those, good luck. It's a long road. It's like sledding on dirt. And as a parent, there are 9 things we have to do to ensure emotional health in a child. I'll rattle these off pretty quick, but I got them in a book coming out. Guide, guard, govern, direct, correct, protect, cherish, nourish, admonish. Those are the 9 things. If you do that consistently as a parent, see a lot of people that need to be liked, they try to be friends with their kids and not parents.
Yeah.
Backfires. So if one parent is not the friend, then it's a lot better. And so it's like the good cop, bad cop. It's a good balance as long as the one parent isn't overriding the other parent. You both have to be on the same page. But anyway, but every child's different, and all these things have strong implications on how they're actually going to develop, because basically all childhood is forging their tools for release later on.
Yeah.
What are they bringing out of that in their tool bag? Some people have a hammer. Some people have a tape measure. All they do is compare things. They have that extrinsic part of them. And everybody's different. So how do we balance that? Well, love and security, and always let the children know that you're not perfect. And when you screw up, apologize. You know, it's easier when you do that.
So let me ask you this from personal experience. So both my children, I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, both are stubborn. Like, put it this way, my son, with no language, he was 8 months old. If I tried to put black sneakers on him and he wanted blue ones, there was no way I was putting black ones until there were blue ones on his feet, and he had no language. It was just like, not going to happen. And to this very day, I mean, he's the most decisive. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's an immovable mountain when it comes to things that he wants. So knowing that about him, first of all, I love that quality. I think that's what makes probably the most successful people in the world.
Sure.
But part of me
makes the biggest assholes too, if you're not careful.
Exactly. So part of me is this, I don't want to squash that tool that he has, that ability, right? To like get that. But at the same time, it's all balanced, right? So I also don't want him to be an asshole where he's just like, fuck everyone. Like it's my way or the highway. So in that example, and you spoke before about need, like there's an emotional need. Does that play into this, or am I just mixing two things?
Yeah, he needs problems and challenges.
Okay.
So, the black sneakers was a problem. He made a problem out of it. Okay, it's a problem. So I want to make a problem and a challenge. So I got black sneakers on. I can't tell him I want blue. That's a real challenge. But I'm going to refuse the black. He created an insurmountable task until you figured it out. And it gave him life.
Wow.
To do that. So as the child gets older, now he's very young at that point, as he's getting older, you want to make sure he has challenges. What can happen is he can get into school, and if he's not challenged in school, he'll disrupt the class in order to get a challenge, or spit a spitball at the teacher when she ain't looking, or do something to create challenges. So you have to make sure he is getting challenged. And part of that could be getting him involved in challenging things. Whatever. My son needed problems and challenges, and I started, took him to the gym, and he's a weightlifter now. And, it was hard to do because he couldn't even do a push-up in the beginning, or couldn't do a sit-up. He was a little overweight for his age, and some things, and we just worked through that. And it gave him that outlet. So everybody that's driven and decisive needs problems and challenges, and it's up to us to provide them. This, King Solomon, I love to quote Solomon. His wisdom literature is amazing. But one of the things he said is, if you train up a child in the way that they ought to go, when they are old, they won't depart from it. And what he's talking about is figure out how these kids are wired and help get them on, figure out what kind of car they're driving, get them in the right race.
Yeah.
And when you do that, in the end, they'll be who they were supposed to be. They'll be who they are. That happened with my daughter. We found out we would do different things. We found out she was really gifted with horses. So I drove a piece of crap car so I could buy her a horse.
Wow.
And then she became a grand champion rider. And it was expensive and it was difficult in those days. That's when I had the painting business, when I wasn't making as much money as I do now.
Yeah.
So I made it work because I saw what she needed and what she was good at. And I provided the opportunity for her gifts to emerge. So that's what you have to do. You have to find out, okay, what is this saying about this person? And then provide opportunity for that to be carried out in a healthy way.
So how do we do that? How do we find out? We'll talk about kids, and then I want to kind of transition to this more towards the adult side, because I know, some people don't have kids, but how do you find that out in a person? Are there questions that we ask? Are there things that we look for?
Yeah, there's things you look for. So you look for impatience in a child, let's say. Okay. So let's talk about the driving child for a minute. We're going to look for impatience. He walks up to his sister's block tower, kicks it over.
Yep.
No reason at all. Just kicks it over.
Yep.
Creating a problem and a challenge.
Got it.
So that child, you might want to, put him in martial arts and see how he does. He can kick all day there.
That's so funny. That's the exactly what I said. I said to my wife, you know what? I feel like Shia, martial arts for him would be perfect because it's the focus, the discipline, and the problem solving, like the getting that out. Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
So things like that. So you have to, again, you're doing little experiments in order to find out what's going on. Like my son, we put him in football, right? He hated it. And so, we spent $400 or $500 on all the uniform crap and everything. And at the end of his first practice, it was brutal. He wanted to cry, but he didn't. Wow. And he came up to me and said, "Dad, this is what I thought it was going to be." And I said, "Sweetheart, you don't have to do it." He goes, "But you just spent all this money." I said, "It ain't about that." Wow. I said, "It's about you." And he ended up playing piano and golf. He was the best on his golf team.
Wow.
And we got him in football because he's big, but that didn't work. So we just stopped. No, you're going to be a football because I suck at it. That's not going to work. Wow. So that's what you do. You try little things. You see where they can have an outlet for that decisive behavior. If you have a child that's very phlegmatic, non-responsive, internalized, they don't talk a lot, then you'll not know a lot about that child. And so what they need is safety and security. So you want to keep them in a safe environment. That might be with a small group of like-minded children in doing something. So not competitive at all, but where there's peace and harmony. And that could be, whatever. Come on, we could scrapbooking. I don't know, but where there's peace and there's harmony. Watch the way they draw. Kids doodle. If you see talent, which I did in my kids, I should show you some of the stuff. My son did a charcoal of Hannibal that's 4 feet wide. Wow. By 4 feet. And it looks like a photograph. And he did this in college, but once we saw that he was doodling well, we got him charcoal pencils, special erasers, showed him YouTube drawings, and now that's what he does. So we located that. He's very calm, very quiet, is to himself. I'm not going, "Why aren't you part of this family?" Yeah. That's not how he thinks. He's in his own world. And so you provide things for him in that world.
Brilliant.
Some kids are thinkers. My other son's like a mathematician. He was doing his math in his head at school and getting in trouble for it because he wouldn't write out the equations. He didn't have to. Yeah. So I had to help him negotiate that. But he gets straight A's in flipping calculus in college now. He's in a psychology program. We home educated all our kids.
Wow, good for you.
And we did that because we wanted to be able to focus on what they were good at their pace. And so they schooled 3-4 hours and then went out and played.
Amazing.
He's getting A's in college and university. I mean, it didn't hurt them at all. Now, they claim some of it did. So we had all those talks and said our sorries and forgiveness and whatever and moved on. So anyway, with the children, you have to start experimenting, putting them in situations and watching what happens. And I heard my son on the phone. He's like 9 years old talking to a friend. He goes, "Is that something you want to talk about?" And I'm like, "What the hell?" Well, he's in the psychology program now.
That's awesome.
I mean, I saw it back then and I'm like, this guy's a mediator.
That's awesome.
So, we talked to him about maybe being a lawyer. We talked to him about psychology and he's picked one. So again, it's just watching and guiding.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting for me and I think for you also, having the background of looking for those things in humans and looking for those telltale signs. I'm constantly looking at my son and how his brain's developing and what he's interested in. I find that a lot of people, if you don't do that work on yourself, you're never going to be able to do that.
See, a lot of parents are only looking at what they're interested in.
Yes.
And that will not work.
Yeah. Or they try to correct
they're interested in.
Yeah. They try to correct their past and their mistakes or what their parents in their kids, which is just, setting up.
That happens a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
We got to be really careful that we're not forcing them to live our life.
Yeah.
They got to live their own, and that will create a very healthy child.
Yeah. So let's transition, because this is the last piece I want to kind of leave people with is, people deal with their boss or their wife or, their brother, whatever it is. Are there things that people can do right now, maybe ask a certain question, see how someone responds, that will allow them to understand what kind of category that person fits into? And then the second piece to that is, I know there are ways that we can say the same thing to every single person that will be effective. So in other words, if I'm dealing with someone that's a logical thinker, I'm going to want to treat them with logic. Yeah. I'm not going to want to dominate them.
That's right.
So can we kind of touch on how to figure out where they are and then maybe give people a couple of examples of what that would look like in the interaction? Hey guys, I just want to take a quick break here and let you know about our 10-day challenge. All you have to do is head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day. And in it, we give you a 10-part video series that is absolutely changing lives, and it's completely free. It's a mindset shift in what is possible for you in your life right now. So I just want to read to you what someone has just written me. And they said, "What did the 10-day challenge create for me? In summary, a plan of action. A man with a goal and a plan is unstoppable. Your 10-day challenge allowed me to take all that confusion and fear of my situation and see it was a period of transition. I have a plan. I've taken action and I'm implementing. Success is just over the horizon." And that could be the case for you. So head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day, and grab your 10 free videos today and create a plan of success for you. Now back to the episode.
Okay, let's take a mad person. They're direct, they're to the point, they're decisive, they're all about the goal, and they're all about results and problems and challenges. So we got that down.
Yep.
So when talking to them, you have to be direct and to the point. You can't belabor. They're usually afraid of being taken advantage of. And so you have to ensure them that they're not. They want to win, so you got to let them win. I had a guy call me up. He's a business owner, and he's going to go negotiate a sale with his company, and the person he's dealing with is a decisive. And he said, "What do I do?" I said, "Let him win."
Huh.
And for him, it was like, well, then you're not going to sell the company. Not to him.
Wow.
So you got to decide if you want to sell the company or not. Because if you want to do that, then this is how you're going to have to do it with that person. He doesn't need you. You need him. So you're in the awkward position. He's not. So what do? You listen to him. You say, okay. And if he comes up with an idea or you come up with an idea, make it his idea. Well, if you're insecure, you can't do that. Well, then, sorry, you're not going to sell the company to that guy. If you want to sell to him, he's got to win. He's got to be in charge, and you got to be the butt boy. And then you'll sell it.
Wow.
So in the end, you get what you want, but he needs to get what he needs during the process, or he's done. It just won't work. It just won't work. So that's an equation. The glad people, you got to be more interested in them than yourself. When you're dealing with those people, you got to find out what inspires them. Talk about them. They love talking about themselves. If you talk about them and make them the star of the show, you'll end up what you need out of the relationship every single time. And again, it's not a deceptive ploy. Like, I'm going to sell this guy this piece of shit car, so I'm going to like be their friend. I'm not talking about manipulation like that. I'm talking about, if you're going to work with a person who is a people person, then you've got to make them feel really proud to be with you. And usually that happens when they have those three fears: fear of not being liked, failing, and being misunderstood. Understand them, make them feel like they won the lottery after they've been with you. Find out what they need. They need emotional back and forth. They need limbic looping. So you got to spend some time talking about them. Some people that's a waste of my time. Well, then you're not going to have a relationship with that person. You're not going to be able to work with that person effectively unless you give them what they need in the relationship, which is interaction. And then the sad people, they need to feel safe. Let's say I'm a salesman and I'm selling to a sad person. Okay, they're all about safety and security. How do you sell a car to a sad person? You don't. And then you do. So you would say to the sad person, listen, if I were you, I'd go home and talk this over with my wife or with my husband. You should think this through. This is a really big purchase for you. So why don't you go home and think about that? So the more space I give them, the more comfortable they feel with me.
Wow.
But if I'm breathing down their neck, what do I got to do to get you in this truck? I mean, you're scaring them to death. Yeah, no way. No way. But if I'm trying to get rid of them, then I'm keeping them because I'm the safest person. Matter of fact, you'll even get away with recommending they go somewhere else. And when they go there and get chewed to bits by that moron, they're going to come back to you.
So let's use that as a perfect example, because I'm sure people interact with these people to sell them all the time, whether it's a car, a course, a training, or whatever.
Yeah.
What's a question that they can ask this person to find out if they're sad?
Okay. It isn't as much a question. It's body language. I mean, they don't look you in the eye.
Huh.
They will look away after a few seconds because it's too intimidating to stare at you. You ever talk to people that even close their eyes while you're talking to them?
Yeah.
That's a sad.
Interesting.
Okay? You shake their hand. It's a warm, friendly, borderline fish shake. Okay? Shoulders are down.
Yeah.
Looking away. Family oriented. They've got a minivan. S.
Wow.
Okay. They're very careful. They're intimidated. They're put back a little bit. To give them space. Give them space. Do you need any help? If you need any help, you let me know, but you go ahead and browse.
Amazing.
Okay. And then, why do people walk on a car lot anyway? They want a car. Why do we act like they don't?
Yeah.
We got to convince them that they do. That's why they're there, moron. I mean, what? And we just attack. I mean, you could love people into a car. I mean, it's amazing. So, so those people, you got to give them space. You got to give them space and make them feel safe. The safer they feel, the more they will open up. And you got to make sense. You got to deliver what you say. You got to do what you say, or they won't trust you. You can't lie to those people. You got to be really honest. And when I used to sell to S's, usually I talked with a housewife when it would come to painting a house because the husband's at work.
Yeah.
And so, I would tell them, how much it's going to cost. I say, it's probably going to be the most expensive thing you've ever done. And I just tell them that. And they're like, wow, that's really honest. And I'm like, well, is there another way to be? You know, and they're like, okay, wow. So, you know, I'm risking the whole sale in order to make them feel safe. Here, why don't you look up these references, call these people. If you like what you hear, you can give me a call back. I don't need to paint this house.
Gotcha.
And one lady, she was asked, I said to her, I've always wanted to paint this home. And I got the job. She said, you loved my home. Made her feel safe. And it was a big job.
Wow.
And so, and the scared people, they need information, and they're very logical, and they are very cautious. They live on thin ice. And so you can't run out there on thin ice with them and jump around going, hey, you know, we're all going to fall in. You know, they're real cautious. And so the way you deal with those people is they're very mechanical, like Al Gore. Or Kevin Costner, Barack Obama. When they talk, they're going, they're thinking. These are the thinkers. And so they don't say much, but they think a lot. And so they ask all the right questions. So they're going to be asking you questions. If you're going to work with a C, you better have the answers. Or if you don't, tell them you don't.
Yeah.
But you will go get them. And now, you know, I don't know the answer to that. You give them a line of crap, that's it. You lost them. They're gone. But if you say, listen, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out and I will let you know ASAP. Now they're feeling, okay. So those are the people that you have to be logical. You have to be able to show that you're not doing anything off the cuff. You're thinking, you're processing, because that's what they're doing. And they want you to process with them. They need time to make the correct decision. You got to give them time. You can't force them on a decision. And the way you spot those people, they're like an android. And they're very straight. They're very stoic. They're neatly kept. Everything's in place usually. Think of Star Wars. C-3PO was a thinker. Han Solo is the dominant influencer who just runs into an asteroid field yelling yeehaw. And C-3PO is giving him the odds of survival. That's how he thinks. So what does he say? Shut him up or shut him down.
Yeah.
I don't want no odds.
So what I'm hearing is what you want to almost do is understand who it is that you're dealing with. And am I hearing you right that people actually want to interact with themselves? Like people want to interact with their...
They're more comfortable with who they are than who you are.
Got it. So
you have to adjust yourself. You have to mirror them in a way.
Exactly. That's a good
way to mirror them. So
that's a good way to say it.
Here's an example. We were taking 28 kids to Mexico in 2004, somewhere back there. And I had a real dominant guy on the team. And he kept emailing us. Don't be late to the meeting. You know, these arrows of one-liners. And my wife's like, I don't think he likes us. And I said, oh, he's a dominant. That's just the way they are. And so we get to the meeting and guess what? He's late. So what did I do? I became him. So when he walked in, I said, hey, you're late. And he looked at me and he winked. And I said, I don't want one more email from you about me being late until you're on time.
Now, let me ask you this. I like that. Would that person, did you do that in private or did you do that in front of...
I did it in private.
Okay.
I took him into the office.
Okay, because if you did that in public in front of everyone and the kids, that would be a big no-no for that person, right?
Not good. You never do that. In every interaction you have to preserve people's dignity.
Okay.
If you don't do that, you're on your own.
Got it. So
I took him into private and said that. After the meeting, I put my arm around him. I said, hey, dude, I'm really glad you were here. You're really an asset. It's going to be great when we get on this trip. And he goes, hey, I'm really sorry for being late. He goes, I felt the sting in what you said. And he goes, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing $30,000 worth of work with him that year.
Wow.
And it was because I spoke his language. He trusted me. I called him on it, which is what he would have done. And so he didn't take an offense at it. He was like, I like this guy.
Wow. Brilliant. Okay. So mirror them. That's a really, really good tool, I think, for people to think about, both in business and at home. I think very, very powerful. Yeah. All right, Steve, we can do this all day, but I know your time is valuable.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this final question that we ask everyone here on the show. And it's based off that cliche. I can't wait to hear your answer, by the way. It's based on the cliche of, I wish I knew then what I know now. So knowing where you are today and what you know, what is something that you wish you would have known as you were growing up or when you started business or whatever?
I wish I knew more, that I was wonderful just the way I was. Because even though I don't think people didn't tell me that, the people in my life that mattered, but I didn't get the message. They wrote it in German. And so I really didn't get the message. And it took me years to realize that I'm worthy. For me, and I'm writing a book about it. I mean, it's 352 pages about, self-worth. And so if I knew then, like I know now, I think things would have been a little bit different. And that I didn't have to perform in order to get the praise, that I already had it. And I think things would have been a little bit different. And I also wish I knew a little bit more about how finances work.
Don't we all?
I did not know anything about that until late in my life. And things would have been different. But with me, because I had attention deficit, you don't just hammer the nail, you got to bash it in.
Wow.
And people just would give it to me like they would give it to somebody else who could hear it one time and grab it. I didn't. I needed it over and over again. You got to hold my face and look me in the eyes and say, do you get it? Read it back to me. Do you understand? And I think for me, worthiness and financial responsibility, not that I'm irresponsible, but I'm certainly not knitting with two needles when it comes to finances. But thank God for all my entrepreneurial friends that I work with. I'm learning quickly. But anyway, those are two things I could think.
Awesome. So where can people reach out to you and go through this process with you and get coaching from you, et cetera?
SteveSisler.org is where everything's at. And there's a form that'll pop up. They can contact me if they want to. If they want to just go ahead and do one of the assessments, you just scroll down one section as you get on there. It says profile me. There's one that's got a 60-minute debrief where we're together on the phone for 60 minutes or Skype or whatever. And then there's another one that's 90 minutes, a little more, overkill. But you'll know more about yourself in 60 minutes than you probably will up to that point in your life.
Yeah.
If I do it with you.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. By the way, how old must someone be to do this?
11.
11, you can start. Okay.
Yeah, probably 11. Anyone younger than that, I just ask the parents some questions and I'll tell them about their children.
Interesting.
What they tell me.
That'd be awesome. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Steve, I mean, absolute blast. Like I told you before, you're just like a well of information. I just almost feel like I almost feel bad that I didn't ask certain questions because I'm like, man, if you just ask this, you're like throw it out. Just like, amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on here. And hopefully your book is coming out when?
It's still in edit. It's taking longer than I thought, but I'm glad because the guys are very high compliant. So I'd say in the next 2 months it's going to be out. I can't say exactly when, but I'm going to do some kind of a launch as soon as I know.
Perfect. Well, we'll definitely, I would love to have you back here when the book launches to talk about the book and launch it out there and help you.
Great.
And in the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Amazing work. Amazing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, everybody. I need you guys to start blowing up my email. Ilan at SatoriPrime.com. I need to know what you heard in these two parts that just absolutely blew your mind, because I've now, like I've said, listened to this at least 4 times through the editing process. And every time I'm pulling new, unbelievable information. I sat here and listened to it with my wife. We had conversations about what we'll do with our children. Just absolutely amazing the level and depth to which you can gain knowledge on how to interact with people just simply by doing this process. If you're in the position of interacting with people on a regular basis, looking at partnerships or potential partnerships, I highly recommend you reach out to Steve and see if you can book yourself in for one of these appointments. It will absolutely change your life. So again, email me at Ilan at SatoriPrime.com. Let me know what you thought. Or if you're checking this out as the blog post, just leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. I will share all of these with Steve himself. And until we speak again, have an amazing, amazing rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my